Change. Yikes, we hate it. Like it or hate it, it's happening, and we have to learn how to handle it. How to handle it, dare I even say, how to, as Dell wants you to do, embrace it. This talk is participatory. In fact, I hope that I haven't taken so much time that we won't have time to break into breakout rooms. I'm going to zoom through some of this, but I really want you to share your activities and so forth with us. So let's just take a quick poll. In general, how do you feel about change? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Just in general, as I said in our initial little blurb in the newsletter, climate change, bad; diaper change, good. But when you are faced with a change, in general, how do you feel about it? Do you like it or do you dislike it? Please put 1 or 2 in the chat. All right. So what's to like about change? If we had more time, I would just have you all shout out some things, but I'm going to put down some things I thought of about what's to like about change. And then if you can think of something that I haven't mentioned, then I'd like you to unmute and talk about it. One of the ways that they say you can delay dementia is to continue to stimulate your brain, learn new things, and keep those brain cells and those neurons synapsing, stimulating. It's not boring when everything is exactly the same day after day after day after day. My God, what a definition of hell that could be. Adapting to change, when you know something's happening and you've got to evolve, you're going to learn new things. You're going to learn, there's a detour in the road. You're going to learn what's another route I can take. When you in your job and it says we're going to move from this excuse me, from this platform to that platform, you've got to learn. You have to evolve or die. It opens up opportunities for new experiences, things you've never done before, and suddenly your job becomes a job that has to do with travel. Oh my gosh, how scary is that? But it's new experiences. It can take your life in a very positive direction. A new job can be a good thing. A new job can also be something that, oh my gosh, I'm not prepared for this. This isn't something I'm good at. It can also take you into a negative direction, but more often change can be a very positive thing. And it can provide you with challenges and problems that you need to overcome. Very often I think about the people of Ukraine, who's never expected, they were sitting around in coffee shops. They were saying, Russia is not going to invade. They're not going to invade. They wouldn't do that. And all of a sudden, not only are they in a war situation, they're refugees. They've lost everything. And they're in a new country with a different language, and they don't have anything. So change can provide challenges and problems that you need to overcome, which can make you or break you. And as we can see with polar bears, climate change, they need to figure out how are they going to live with the new reality, or as a species, they will not survive. So there's all kinds of things that it can be a growth thing. It can be a positive thing, even though it might be scary during that process. So what's to hate? Oh, by the way, I just want to point something out that I'm sure none of you are going to care about. Every single slide that has the word change, it's in a different font. Adapt. So change can be overwhelming, where it's too much. It's too much, and it's just, you can't deal with it. I used to work with homeless people at the Arch, and I taught classes on how to find a job, and I made them resumes and business cards. And it seemed to me, of course, I dealt with the cream of the homeless crop. These were people who wanted to go back to work, and they felt that they had marketable skills, and they really wanted not to be homeless anymore. So there was a great deal of motivation to leave that life and go back into the mainstream. And I discovered that most of the people that I worked with had had two things, at least two things, happen to them back to back. Like they got laid off and then they lost their home, or they got laid off and then their spouse left them. And then they couldn't deal with that blow and they started drinking, and then they're eventually on the street. Or they lost their job and then had a medical emergency and they had no insurance. It was, I think that if just one thing had happened, if they'd had a family to support system, they could have dealt with the one blow, but it was the layering of change that it just, they didn't have the resources to deal with the multiple issues. Change can create a feeling of vulnerability and insecurity. You were not part of the decision. If you institute the change, if you say, I'm going to start a healthier lifestyle, I'm in charge of this, that's different. But when the change is foisted upon you from the outside, that can make you feel very vulnerable and very insecure. Adapting to change can be very, very hard work. You've got to come up to speed on new software. You've got to learn new skills. You've got to, learn a new language. You've got to change your life in such a massive way. It is just very, very hard work. It doesn't, dealing with change can be very difficult. And some of you that I hear in Job Club say, I had the perfect job. I lost the perfect job. I was so happy. It was exactly what I was looking for. Sometimes we see situations where somebody says, I was married to, the love of my life. My marriage was perfect. My marriage was so good. We had so much fun together. I was married to my best friend. And then that changed through whatever event. And suddenly, in deep in your heart of hearts, that whatever is going to come next can never possibly be as good as what you had. So there's that. So you didn't like that change. You have a sense of loss for what you had in the past. And what happens to us very often is what we had in the past is kind of glorified in our memory. It is idealized, where we only remember the good things and we don't remember anything that was not really perfect. And so the sense of loss is sometimes something that you never completely over. The idea that you have no control over your life can be huge. Applying this to the job search, some of you have maybe had this question, especially as your unemployment has lasted much longer than you had anticipated, and you go into an interview and somebody asks you this really horrific, obnoxious question of, so why do you think it's taking you so long to find a job? Why is nobody hiring you? What do you think is wrong with you? I hope none of you have had that, because it's just an evil attack question. But I hope that if you asked that question, you were able to pull it out of the flames by looking him in the eye and saying, I could have gone to work earlier, but I chose not to take the first job offer that came my way just because I felt desperate. Fortunately, I'm in a position, and this is whether it's true or not, where I was able to take my time, do some research, and figure out what kind of job and what kind of company was I looking for next that was in keeping with my career path. And so I'm very picky about what I take next. I want it to be a job that offers challenge and an opportunity to learn and to grow. And so I didn't want to do exactly the same job that I've always done. I wanted something that was going to be fun and challenging and interesting with people that I like. And I think that may be this job, but I'd like to find out a little bit more about the position. So what can you tell me a little bit about the challenges that I'll be facing in this job? So you need to show that you are in control, and the choices that you're making are all part of your master plan. Anytime there is change, I believe there are winners, people who are going to profit from that change and succeed because of that change, and there are losers. You can look at gentrification for that. There are people that are going to take advantage of transitional neighborhoods and move into a place where they can get a really good deal at an affordable price, and the losers, the people that can no longer afford to live in the neighborhoods that they've felt comfortable in for such a long time. So any change is going to make some people come out ahead and some people be losers. Let us discuss the hermit crab. The picture on the left shows a hermit crab without his protective shell. And you can see that he has this enormous part of his body that looks all kind of mushy, squishy, soft. Any kind of a predator who loves hermit crabs is going to pounce on that little soft, squishy spot and gobble it up, which is why a hermit crab finds an abandoned shell and puts that mushy part inside the shell. So now he has armor, as you can see from the picture on the right. The problem with that is as the hermit crab grows, the shell is going to eventually feel constrictive. And in order to survive, in order to continue to grow, he's got to leave the protection of that shell and move on to find another shell. You would think that a really intelligent hermit crab would crawl around till he found a bigger shell and then lose the small one and immediately crawl into the bigger one. But that rarely happens. What he does is he climbs out of his protective shell and goes in search of a new home. And during that transition, that crab is vulnerable and out of control, and it's very scary, and they're in danger. One of my sons used this analogy when he graduated from high school and gave a speech and talked about the protective high school shell, and that now they were going into, all the graduates were moving into a transitionary time or transitional time when they were going to either go into a new safety spot of a job or of college or whatever, but they were going to be they were going to feel vulnerable for a while until they settled into their new home. And unemployment is very much like that. You've gone from one safety net with with an environment that you were secure in, with benefits and a clear career path, and now you're looking for your next home that will offer you similar, if not improved, security. So here's a question. Why are some people better at adapting to change than others? What is the deal with that? Some people seem to, as we saw, do you like change? Look at all the number ones that we had. We didn't see any number twos of people who hate change. We saw number ones, 1.5. One said a 3, which was a combination of the two. But the army brat, the typical army brat, we hear this all the time. So you talk to somebody about, where are you from? And they'll say, oh, I'm an army brat. So we moved all over. I've lived in, 5 countries and 29 cities and so forth. Somebody will say, or my family was, when you talk to people who were financially insecure, and they say, yeah, I went to, between the kindergarten and 12th grade, I went to 15 schools, but it was not because anybody was in the military. It's because they were always on the move because they didn't have money. So some people are really good at adapting to new locations, and they know that they need to make friends quickly, and they introduce themselves, and they join groups, and they engage, and they kind of like moving on from one place to another and living in different cities and states. And so some people are afraid, they don't want to get new friends because they're going to have to leave those friends, and it's too painful to cut those connections that they've had. So are some people naturally good at change, or is it just that they have learned from the way that their parents have raised them to be better adapted to change? So is this adaptability to change by nature? Were they born with this ability, or is it nurture? So sometimes you'll read things about the birth order. The firstborn child tends to be more independent, tends to be more responsible, tends to be more easily adaptable to change. I've seen that. The middle child's kind of a mess. That's where I was. Finds it a little bit more difficult. The younger kids were the babies and got all the attention. The older kids were the firstborn, and so they got all the responsibility. The middle kid kind of is less secure. That's one of the things that they say. When I taught classes at the Workforce Center, every week I did a personality test, and it was kind of like a parlor game, but it said, this is your personality. You'll tend to be a natural leader. You'll tend to be an alpha, or you'll tend to be an enthusiastic beginner of things and a lousy finisher of things. So you'll get bored easily. There's all sorts of things where they say, you're a Pisces. This is what you're like. And a lot of those horoscope signs seem to be pretty accurate. I am exactly my horoscope sign. Exactly. You can go to the grocery store and spend 39 cents on a book about Aquarians, and you'll know all my innermost secrets. I am exactly what that sign says I am. So it's like, well, that's my nature. That's my personality type. And I can work hard to change it, but my basic foundation of who I am seems to be nature. Also, there's the rational you as opposed to the emotional you. I think people who, and I think this is part of your personality, people who make decisions based on intelligent, rational thinking. They do critical thinking. They tend, I think, to perhaps adapt to change more naturally. People who make decisions based on emotional thinking tend to cling to, the friends and the relationships, and, oh, I loved that, and I don't want to change anything. So there's that. What your experiences were as a child, how your parents viewed things has a huge impact on how you view things. If every time you were going to move, your parents said, in our new city, we're going to go on a treasure hunt, and we're going to see if we can find these 5 things. And they make it be fun. They make it be exciting. They make it into a game. They're excited about it and positive about it. And that attitude of positivity creates a framework that helps children also deal with change. And then there's also the piece about control. Who decides? Who decides? Is this going to be a positive thing that you control, or is it something that's going to be foisted upon you? So nature or nurture? Let's take a poll. And this time I want somebody to read me the numbers. In your case, do you think that your attitude toward change is a result of nature or nurture? So put number 1 or number 2. And I want somebody, Shannon maybe, to read me the numbers.
We're getting lots of 2s so far. Straight down the line.
Okay. So more that this was not, you didn't, you weren't born with this ability to look positively on change. This was something that you learned through whatever, through experience. Is that correct? You're looking on. Okay. We're going to just move on. So this was an article that the article was called "Why Do Humans Resist Change?" And the subtitle was "Monkeys Are More Cognitively Flexible Than Humans." Bummer. And they talked about a scientific experiment that was done in Georgia, although there are lots of similar experiments that have been done over the years, where I think they had 60 human participants and something like 45 two different kinds of monkeys that participated, and they showed that even if humans were shown a more efficient way to reach their goal, they tended to want to do things in the way that they had always done. They were more comfortable with the way they had always done something. And even if they were shown or it was related to them that, this way is faster. You'll reach your destination faster. They were very reluctant to do that. Whereas monkeys were all about it. I can get to my goal faster. I can get to my food faster. I can reach my destination faster. I'm all into that. And maybe it was because with monkeys, they were more primitive in, and they knew that figuring out ways to reach their goals faster and more efficiently was a survival skill for them. And human beings were just more resistant to change because they were more comfortable with doing things the way they had always done them. It's an interesting study, and Shannon will always post the PowerPoint presentation, and you can look it up yourself or take a picture of it and look it up yourself. But we do tend, I think, to get comfortable with the way things are, with the status quo. This is our comfort zone. Years ago, when I was teaching at the Workforce Center, I asked somebody to explain, what is a comfort zone to you? What does that mean to you? How would you describe a comfort zone? And we had the best answer that I heard that day was from a guy who was in that class. I cannot remember his name, although I can see his face, but he was he wasn't like you'd call a white collar worker. He wasn't a professional, but he was a singer-songwriter. He was an Austin singer-songwriter, and who thought he had a very big creative side to his brain. And he said when he thinks of comfort zone, he would describe it as a velvet rut. It feels so good, but you are in a rut. And there's no chance for getting out of that rut, but you're comfortable there. Yuck. Right. I loved it. All right. I'm going to tell you my personal story and how this framed my attitude toward change. And it was all because of childhood experiences, really, or experiences in general. So my parents divorced when I was really young. I was 3, and I had a 5-year-old brother. And you would think that that would have been a bad thing. But as it turned out, that change was good. There was no more tension, which I could feel at 3. We moved to a new city, which was a very cool city, and much like Austin, but it was in Wisconsin. It was Madison. And my mother went to work, and my brother and I were on our own at a very early age, primarily because my brother was a nightmare to babysit. And so we had a lot of autonomy. We had a lot of independence. How cool is that? It wasn't like we were totally on our own at 3 and 5, but we had a lot of autonomy. We both grew up very independent. And some people look on the fact that you're the only you come from the only divorced family in the school, except for those people that we don't talk about. But I kind of liked it. I was kind of notorious, and it was a good excuse for being wild, was because I was from a broken home, but I loved it. But nobody in my neighborhood was divorced except for my mother. And so, but I liked it. So that was a big fat change. And I thought, this is great. I could take the bus on my own at a very early age. I could go to the University of Wisconsin where she worked, and I could crawl all around up there. And I loved it. Then 10, 15 years later, she remarried, and part of that new situation was, we're moving to Austin, away from your friends, away from your school, away from everything you've known. And I hated that change. And I had no say in it. My brother got to stay there because he was a senior in high school, but I had to move to Austin, which I hated for many years. And then another change was, after I graduated from college, my two first jobs in my career field, I didn't get officially fired, but my contract was not renewed. They could have kept me. They chose not to. So in my mind, it was the same as being fired. And I had all this insecurity and lack of confidence about, will I ever get a job in my career field? So there was a change that I hated, and I could not see a future that was better. I just thought, this was my world, and I cannot be successful in this world. So those two changes I hated, and it made me very insecure about a job. I had two children to raise, and I thought, I have to get a job no matter what. And so I took a long-term job with the state, a job I did not want, a job I did not like. And I thought, I'm going to keep this job with its security. I'll stay in this little velvet rut until my kids graduate from high school. And then I'm quitting. I'm going to go off. I'm going to have adventures. So that was kind of a mixed thing. And then I got to do some things that I liked. I created job search skill classes in that job. And I thought, well, I like this part, so I'm going to stick around for a while because I like this. And then eventually I got to do Job Club, and I liked that even better. And so everything was basically much more positive. And now I have left all of that world and moved to a new state, a new city, a very different culture. And we'll see what happens with this. Parts of it are good, parts of it are not. So what I want you to do next, oh, by the way, I found this years ago, and I thought, oh, I love that. That would be me. Okay, moving on. Breakout rooms. Paul, can you put us, let's see, we are 12.
I've got 9 people, 8 people in 3 rooms.
Okay, that's fine.
For how long?
Oh, it's 11:25.
For
Bummer.
for how long?
All right, how about 6 minutes?
6 minutes, okay.
And what I want you to do, everybody, is share on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being I hate change, and 5, oh wait, how resistant are you to change? With 1 being I love change, and 5 being I am resistant to change, I don't like it. So what number are you? And then, why are you that way? Is it because of nature, or is it because of nurture? Make sure everybody gets a chance to share. Bye. How many of you said it was your resistance was caused by nature? We're so few now. We've had people dropping like flies. This is like being in an Agatha Christie mystery. And then there were 5. So how many of you were your resistance is caused by nature?
Well, we didn't really get a chance to get to that part. We just talked about 1 through 5. And I said I was a 4, and then other people thought they were 1. So some of us were more willing for change, and Me, I guess not. I guess I get comfortable with routine. But we didn't get to nature or nurture.
Okay, so why do you think it is? Why are you resistant to change?
Well, I hate to get too personal, but I, I, I guess nurture because I had dramatic things happen in my childhood that,
Yeah. And so
uh,
you long for security
yeah,
and safety.
there it
Yeah.
is. My
Yep.
golly,
Yeah.
$100 saved $150 therapy session. Thank you.
You're welcome. But it's interesting how that works. For the longest time, I didn't want to get married because I thought you get married and then somebody else controls you and tells you where you have to live. And so I thought that's what happened to my mother. I'm not going to do that. So it's, things happen to you and it's maybe even unconsciously, it causes you to rush toward change, embrace change, or avoid it. All right. Dealing with change is a job skill that companies want. And so if this does not come naturally to you, you have to think a little bit about it. This quote here, embracing ambiguity, dealing effectively with change, it comes straight from the Dell HR questions. This is one of their 5 core competencies that they require or prefer from every single person who works at Dell. And I have seen this very same competency listed in other companies as well. Maybe Nancy knows if it's something that comes from the city, but dealing with ambiguity, what they're looking for is somebody who can effectively cope with change, can shift gears comfortably, can decide and act without having the total picture, isn't upset when things are up in the air, doesn't have to finish things before they move on, can comfortably handle risk and uncertainty. And somebody who is not skilled with this is not comfortable with change or uncertainty. So they ask questions about, tell me about a time when you had to make a decision before you had all the facts. Tell me about a time when you had to leave a project uncompleted and start a new project. How did you handle that? How did you feel about that? And they want somebody who will immediately jump into something, say bye-bye project that I've worked on for 2 years and that is almost almost finished, but not quite, and move on to the next one with no regrets. With no regrets, with no tying up loose ends, move on to the next one because we're done with that. You have to think about the present and the future and not dwell on the past. So how do you deal with change? How do you handle it? How do you deal with it? One is what I just said. You focus on today and the future. You do not linger in the past. You have no guilt about the past. You have no emotional connection to the past. You have to look at what's happening today. Is it good? Is it bad? How am I going to deal with it? How am I going to plan for it? What am I going to do today and tomorrow to deal with this change that is now defines my life? You list all the positive things you can think of that are associated with this change. So you see this sometimes when we're talking about survivors of the fires in California. You've lost everything. And sometimes they'll be interviewing people who are in tears and they'll say, I've lost my home. I've lost my, my job, my livelihood. I've lost everything. I can't live there. I didn't have insurance. And so it's all about the negatives and the loss that has happened. And you'll talk to other people and they'll say, we are so lucky. We are so lucky. We have, my family is alive. We've had some wonderful people who've reached out to help us. We're in a shelter. We have a roof. We have food. We're so lucky. We're so fortunate. And we're looking forward to what we're going to do tomorrow to make the best of our current situation. And it's this either forced or real positivity to where you are right this minute. And what can you think about that's positive about your current condition? What can you think about that's good about this change? the people coming out of Ukraine, living in another country, trying to get their kids in school, trying to, in fact, if you have kids, it forces you to think about the positive and not the negative. Think about what you have and not what you lost. Think about how you're gonna make this a positive thing. You get to start in a brand new school. You get to make new friends. You get to, and you put a positive framework on it for your children, but it has to filter down to you as well, where you think about the positives and you do not allow yourself to dwell on the negative things that are taking place along with it. And you go through this positive list and you keep adding new things to it. And every day you go over it. You put this list of good things on your mirror. You read it before you go to bed, and you try to look at things in the most positive way you can. You set SMART goals. So most of you are familiar with the SMART goal concept. You set goals for how you're going to deal with change. And you make these goals as small, as specific, as measurable, as achievable, as relevant, and as time-bound as you possibly can for dealing with your new reality. So here is a SMART goal context. Let's say that you're in a situation where you're between jobs. You're looking for a new job as an administrative assistant, and you have realized that your skills are not marketable. You need to upgrade your skills. So your task is going to be to improve your skills, your computer skills. The action, so this sounds like a little star story that you're going to use in an interview, but it also is how we're going to frame the context of your SMART goals. So you're going to take some actions. You're going to create a series of SMART goals, very specific goals to improve your skills. And the results are yet to be seen. So here's your SMART goal. Your objective is to learn one kind of software application. You're going to try to learn Google Sheets. You've got good Microsoft Office skills, but a lot of companies where you're applying are Google companies. And so instead of saying, I'm going to learn all the Google suite, I'm going to concentrate, first of all, just on the Google counterpart to Excel. I'm going to learn Google Sheets. So here's your SMART goal. I will spend a minimum of 1 hour a day for 30 days going through tutorials to improve my Google Sheets skills. It is specific. It is measurable. It is achievable. It is relevant to your contextual skills. And it is time-bound. You're going to do this for 30 days. If you get through, you've mastered Google Sheets in fewer than 30 days, then you go on, you create a new SMART goal for another one, for the word processing, the Google Doc thing. So 5 steps to success in dealing with change. And remember that I love this. I read this at a political office after an election that didn't go my way. And it said, remember, the antidote to despair is action. And that is applicable in every single aspect of your life. The antidote to despair is take action and fix things. Take action and do things. Don't sit in bed. Don't sit in front of the television set and complain about your situation. Take action. Break up big challenges into small bites. And your small bites can be broken up even further to, it's just like in Alcoholics Anonymous. If, they say, make your changes one day at a time, one day at a time. And if that's too long, you can't stay sober one day. Can you stay sober for 1 hour? Can you stay sober for 1 minute? Can you stay sober for the next minute? And if you can stay sober for the next minute, then the next minute, and the next minute, and the next minute. Can you stay sober for an hour? Do you think you can do that? Go for a walk outside and don't drink for an hour. This is great. Now, what about the next hour? So however small your challenges need to be broken up into in order to succeed, in order to overcome them, then you do that. So you break up your challenges into small bites. You identify what are your achievable goals. What can you achieve every day? If you can have 3 goals for that day, today I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend an hour on improving my job search skills. I'm going to send out, I'm going to spend an hour looking at job postings. I'm going to spend an hour applying for a targeted job. There's your 3 goals. Can you do that? Can you have achievable goals for every day? And then around those achievable goals, you have to do whatever it takes for you to stay positive. Is it exercise? Is it affirmations? Is it watching positive TED Talks? Is it reading books? Is it podcasts? One of our previous speakers, Pam Otten, gave us this, which I thought was so smart. Minimize your exposure to the news, because it's good for you to know what's going on, but so much of it is negative and you're trying to stay really positive. So minimize your exposure to the news, and do not hesitate to reach out for help or support in dealing with change. Everybody needs some help sometimes. That's why you're in a job club meeting. That's why you're going to reach out to other people. You're going to connect with folks who are here today. You're going to connect with the management of Launchpad and everybody else that you possibly can. We're all here to help. And then repeat these 5 things for the rest of your life. Take whatever challenges that are ahead of you and break them up into small pieces. Identify goals you can achieve every day, and stay positive, and reach out for help or support. Rinse and redo. And then these are some resources. My very favorite TED Talk of all time is just 10 minutes long. I was going to show it to you today if we had time. It's called Embrace the Shake. And I have a lot of other stories about people who have had to, they've gone blind late in life and had to invent themselves. They were able to do it with a great deal of the 5 steps. But anyway, When Smart People Fail, it's an old book that's been around a long time. And it's all, when they say fail, they mean these people lost their jobs and felt as though they were failures. And here's what they did. And that's it.